All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the XenTegra Citrix Network Edition podcast series. I'm your host, Chris Dorn. We're going to kick off here with Season 2, Episode 1, where we're going to cover some of the Citrix Secure Services Edge technologies, and that will include some products like secure internet access, secure private access, and a couple other ones to help along with the SASE style journey that a lot of you customers are embarking upon now. With us today, we have some special guests from the Citrix team. We have Zachary Rowland. He's Network App and Delivery and Security, which is abbreviated as AD&S. He's one of the specialists in that field for the Southeast. Also with us today, Chelsee Noori. We've been working with her a lot over the years. She's on the AD&S team as well as a systems engineer. And Kosylo, our partner account manager, who's helping XenTegra along the way with their Citrix journey. Welcome, folks. I appreciate you guys being here early in the morning. Thanks.
Good to be here. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. And also from the XenTegra side, William Grayson, Senior Network Engineer, is joining us as well. So welcome, everybody, again.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, guys. So we chatted about some of these technologies last year. They were kind of new, and folks were still kind of getting ramped up to it. But we're, since last time we chatted about this, we've seen some innovation in the space. We've seen some tweaking that's happened with the product. The maturity has of course, developed with the stack that Citrix offers. And customers are really starting to come back around, and the conversations being investigated and reignited again as the interest is sparked pretty high. A lot of what I'm seeing personally in the field is that, there's different pressures in the industry from compliance, insurance, just overall the security vectors and the threats that are present in the world that we live in today, are kind of steering folks to really evaluate how they can secure their users and still provide like that awesome experience for them. And it seems like Citrix has really come to the table with the secure private access and SIA with the secure internet access, and being able to deliver that. And wanted to chat about it a little bit more because I'm a big fan of it. It seems like one of the most elegant solutions across the different vendors that are available out there. And it does it a little bit differently because of the virtualization that was always present and the security that was always present with the Citrix technologies. And that being the Xen app, Xen desktop, virtual apps desktops, but as we've gone through the years. So this was kind of like, what I see it as like icing on the cake. It's like you already had the car and the engine and everything there. It was just like tweaking, the performance metrics a little bit with your race car, if you will, and really kind of taking it to the next level. So I wanted to use this opportunity to kind of share maybe an update and an overview of the technology stack again for folks that aren't familiar with it, and then chat about a little bit of what we've seen as far as adoption, any changes that have occurred inside of the product stack, and just how did folks really come about it, and maybe we could talk about putting a POC in, or how folks can evaluate it or really get their hands on it. So if that's cool, we'll tackle it that way.
Yeah, it sounds great, Chris. I mean, you bring up a lot of good points, and I think this is going to be a really valuable discussion.
Okay. Oh, thanks. Well, I'd like to chat about one of the big pieces, was the secure internet access, which was a really like a cloud CASB, a proxy for your internet traffic. And wanted to kind of start in that area, as that's one way that you can quickly initiate your SASE journey and turn on some of those security features that you may already have present in your environment. So maybe Zach and Chelsee, if you could give us a little overview on the SIA.
Yeah, for sure. Just kind of to start on that, the SIA is a really interesting solution because we could really get as granular as you want. I mean, I've worked with a couple customers that had some pretty unique use cases as far as what they want their devices to actually access. One of the things that I always tell people is that, with a solution like secure internet access, you can lock things down pretty much to the point of Fort Knox, right? And it's funny because if you actually look at reviews of people who are using CASB solutions, one of the overarching themes, people are like, man, I hate this ever since I got it. I can't watch Hulu. I can't watch Netflix on my device. It's like, yeah, that's kind of the whole point, But to go a step deeper, one of the really cool use cases I found was a company that was providing laptops to developers that didn't want them to access personal Gmail, but they wanted them to be able to access their corporate Gmail. So the fact that we can actually get granular enough to block like a personal Gmail address, but not a corporate address, kind of unlocks the gates of what all you can do as far as device security. The other kind of things that we've been seeing it for is kind of in terms of device management, right? So a lot of these companies are giving out Chromebooks and they're giving out laptops and all this stuff, and then they just kind of assume that 20 to 30% of them are just going to end up missing. Well, if that device is locked down and then the actual end user can't do anything but work on it, the odds of them trying to keep that for some reason are pretty slim. So there's a lot of kind of hidden benefits in a solution like that. But overall, the main thing is protecting data and protecting traffic as it leaves the endpoint, which is something that, depending on the application, if you've got anything kind of sensitive data, intellectual property, things of that nature, and you want to make sure 100% that it's not getting leaked out and it's not getting copied, things like credit card numbers, this is by far the best solution to employ. And our solution is comparable, if not better than most of the leading solutions in the market right now.
It's a good point, Zachary. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always understood it was kind of the best of breed approach with how you guys deliver SIA.
It is. So we have a bunch of POPs. I think it's something like 68 right now. It might be more actually, where we filter traffic through. So even if one of those is seeing a lot of congestion, like New York City, then we'll intelligently route that traffic over to the next closest POP so the users actually don't get much of a degraded user experience, which is something that, when we talk about resiliency a lot, we want to make sure that uptime is our biggest concern. Obviously, employees can't work, contractors can't do what they're paid to do if they can't access their, their apps and web applications or whatever they're doing on the internet. So when we say best of breed, for us specifically, our solution ties back into the broader Citrix portfolio with a lot of really cool reporting things that'll kind of hit the bigger stack. So we've actually gone head to head up against a couple of competitors, and the users that were already on Citrix, they chose us pretty much hands down because of how we integrate with the rest of the stack.
Very cool. And that would be that should be expected. That's the best of breed. You've already got half of the deployment already in place there. We're just flipping some switches, and then to really kind of make it all work, though, is it's still like a proxy pack kind of file that's placed on the end user's components, or is it an agent still? How's that kind of put onto those users' devices?
It's an agent that's put on the device. So one of the things that I always tell people is that, I would go the CASB, the SIA route if you're the employer that is providing the devices. We all kind of know that with BYOD, it's pretty much impossible to get conformity across the end user group. So requiring your users to install an agent that's then going to, limit their traffic flow on their own, like their personally owned device is kind of a tough sell. But that's kind of where some of the other solutions come in, and really why we have the full SASE zero trust stack across the board.
Okay. And it's still like if I was in a corporate data center and I wanted to say, okay, 100% of everything that's internal to us, if it's going to reach out to the internet, it's going to go through the SIA service. Is there still the ability to kind of bypass the agent and do like a GRE tunnel to the service? Is that still true?
I would lean on Chelsee for that, but from what I understand, yes, is that there's a lot of things depending on device location and kind of what network it's connected to. We actually modify the policies. So I think that's true. I'm like 90% sure, but Chelsee. Thank you.
Yep, Zach, that's correct.
Very
yes,
cool.
We do have that agent option as well, Chris.
Very cool. I mean, because that plays into, that just shows there's a lot of flexibility there. And, you know, if the vendor that you do have in place on your edge is capable, and from what I recall, I didn't see any that were not capable of this, that GRE tunnel could be put into place straight to the service and then immediately provide 100% access for all internal resources to the SIA service in the cloud. So that just playing on top of the flexibility and the agileness of the solution itself that's not the case with most vendors. So that's a unique identifier, I believe. Very cool. So again, that kind of that component is the secure internet access. Again, it's going to be like the web filter that's placed in the cloud for securing access to internet services that your users are taking advantage of. And then from the other side of that, though, we have users that are remote that are coming in, and we really want to look at that zero trust access component. And that's where the secure private access really kind of shines. This has been probably, I'd have to say, the coolest one as far as the innovation that I've seen with it, the ability to really take that virtualization and investment of Citrix to the next level. And quite easily, if you already are a Citrix shop, you know, checking off those boxes for compliance factors. So what's going on new in the world of the secure private access?
Yeah, so that's probably one of my favorite things to bring up with customers these days, because a lot of people, you know, kind of like we were talking about earlier, like they're looking for a solution. They're looking for ways to address these problems, especially when it comes to security, that oftentimes in the traditional deployment, they detract from the user experience, right? So we used to kind of have this sliding scale that the more you go up on security, the more difficult the end user experience. With today's job market, the employee attrition, you know, all of these things that are top of mind to all these companies, they're trying to retain talent and they're trying to make their work as seamless as possible while keeping that security option open, right? So with the secure private access, what we're able to do is unify the end user experience across the board and still provide them, you know, the contextual access to their web and SaaS apps or intranet access, you know, things of that nature from an deployable solution that is actually in line with their Citrix virtualization users, right? So you now have conformity across the board where it doesn't matter what the employee type is. All the employee knows is that they're getting access the same way as everyone else. So from an actual onboarding perspective, I don't know if, you know, I'm sure you guys have deployed users through VPN before, but when you're setting up a new user on the VPN, it's not exactly the easiest thing to set up, to admin, to monitor. You know, if you have to send out like a Word document or an email saying, here's all the websites you need to go to, here's how you set everything up, here's this, this, and this. Now we just give them a URL and then bam, they're in, they get access to everything they need to do their work, and they're under the security umbrella, which is by far the biggest thing now.
Oh yeah, it is, isn't it? And this, you know, and how we kind of tackled all this in the past was if we were delivering VDI, you know, everybody got a desktop, you know, and on the flip side of that, if we were just delivering apps, everybody was delivering apps. A lot of that came through the ADC, the gateway, and this kind of gives us a little more flexibility here, you know, with the options. We don't necessarily have to give somebody a whole desktop. You know, the presentation layer is delivering that application to that user, and a lot of things can like give and take in the delivery of this, which I thought was pretty interesting. What I've seen is, you know, maybe a customer is consuming a new or partnering with a new organization, and they're bringing on, say, for example, 500 new users. And they might only be running like a VPX 200 for their ADC to traditionally deliver their desktops to those users. Well, now we're kind of seeing there's another option here where they might not need to step up the ADC to the VPX 1000, for example. They might be able to take advantage of just delivering those 1 or 2 Z apps to those new users with that new organization through something like this. And I think it really provides another tool in the toolbox for quickly ramping up and completing those mergers and acquisitions, which I thought was a pretty cool piece.
Yeah, Chris, you're spot on there, man. I mean, I'll say another one of the things to mention there is that as more companies are moving to, SaaS-based architecture, they're thinking that all these devices are secure at the endpoint just because whatever app they're using, like, Office 365 or whatever, is deployed as a SaaS app. The reality is that if you still have unlocked devices that are not being monitored, that there's no security policies, just because that your users are consuming SaaS apps doesn't mean that any of that data or any of the work they're doing is safe and secure. So it's this kind of double-edged sword where people are trying to cut costs and they're trying to innovate, but they're cutting on the security because they think, oh, well, if it's a SaaS app, then everything's taken care of. If that device at the endpoint is compromised, everything's being screen scraped, there's key loggers, there's all this stuff going on, and all that data going into that SaaS app or being used in that SaaS app is now compromised. So people have to innovate with the security solutions as well as the actual delivery of whatever the users are accessing.
Yeah, that's very true. And this one came up quite a bit in the initial conversations we've had with some customers. They're like, well, what keeps John and Jane, who bring their BYOD device, how do we enroll them and get them to take advantage of this? And it's been, well, it's the Workspace app. It's kind of, it might already be there, so you got a pretty good chance of, not having to do a whole lot on the endpoints to deliver some of these solutions, especially the secure private access component.
Yeah, there's a lot of customers that actually have entitlements to secure private access now that got grandfathered in that they don't even know it. So it's one of those things where from an admin perspective, it's definitely worth a look to kind of see what your entitlements are and kind of see what you can take advantage of, because that's something that we've seen a lot of people, looking into solutions, not realizing, hey, we've already got this because of what we bought with our Workspace bundle,
I mean, that's a great point. You might be able to tackle that compliancy project that you have coming down the pipeline or already in your lap. You might already have the tools there and quickly be able to check that off your list. So, I mean, that's a very good point, Zach. So, I mean, our listeners here, take advantage of investigating that. Reach out to your XenTegra account representative, client executive. We'll double check that for you because you might already have the entitlements for it. Yeah, that's a great point. And, what another component during a lot of the initial conversations that I've heard over the years was like, well, what keeps that BYOD user from, just going to that SaaS app and logging in directly and not having to take it back through the secure private access component? And the answer is, can it be done? If that's the question, yes. It's just changing the authentication to require it to come from Citrix Cloud is the way that it's kind of tackled, and that'll force those users to have to go through the SPA tunnel to authenticate and work with that SaaS application. With that, though, let me think. I think I forgot a little bit here. I had a next question kind of teed up. Still getting some of that coffee in my system too.
And Chris, real quick, while you're thinking of that question, I just wanted to kind of jump on and mention how the great thing about this solution is while we're adding all of these extra security measures from a cloud service perspective, this is also accessible just how it kind of used to be with your Citrix virtualization. You can do it through a connection app, like a connector, or you can do it through HTML5. So there's a URL connection as well. So kind of gives you that flexibility with your users. If you have vendors that you don't have the agent installed on their device, they can just access it through a URL, just like they would with any Citrix virtualization resources.
Yeah, Chelsee, that's a great point. And you guys were in Charlotte a couple weeks ago. I got to see that firsthand, and I couldn't, you pretty much can't tell the difference between using agent and the HTML5 version. So if your users have a browser, I guess they meet the requirements needed to participate in SPA. So that's a great point. And I think the question I was thinking of a few moments ago, there's the browser, the secure browser that's embedded in that. Can you guys chat about that a little bit? Because that seemed to be like a pretty unique component that that a lot of the competition may have, but it may cost more, or it's, you know, this seemed to be like a really native Chromium-based solution that it's pretty much native to your ZTNA offering.
Yeah, I think that we're actually the only company that gives a solution like that. And really what it is, it's just like you said, it's a Chromium browser that's actually launched as a virtual instance in one of our Azure tenants. And what that actually allows us to do is lock down that browser and give it the same kind of security restrictions that we would from a super locked down virtual desktop, right? So things like anti-screen scraping, anti-key logging, if you know, you can do watermarks. And the cool thing about the secure browser is that you can ramp up those security measures based on the security health score of the user. So that's part of what we have is the adaptive authentication, the contextual access. So if you're a user that is throwing, some red flags, your security is going to get hopped up. Depending on how you have it set up, you might get a watermark over everything. You might not be able to do any kind of copy and paste. So it's one of those things where depending on how tight you want the security, we offer a solution. I always say up to Fort Knox level. So from a company that's really concerned about security, which in this day and age should be every single company, we provide a solution that allows your users, even if they're just gonna launch like a quick internet app or something, we're able to really lock that down and make sure that we have the security policies in place that the customer wants to use.
Nice. So, yeah, thank you. And are there any other component? Well, we didn't chat about it yet, but like Citrix web app and API protection, does that technically fall under like the SSE kind of SASE offerings of Citrix?
Yeah, that's a good point. And, so those are solutions that we offer basically as a response to people that we're trying to set them up through the NetScaler, through different things. In this day and age, all these IT teams that we talk to, they're stretched pretty thin. They've got a million projects going on. They've got directives from all over, but they still have these things that need to get done at the end of the day. So being able to offer things as a service really helps us make sure that everything's up to date, everything's working as intended, with as essentially as little input from the customer as possible. We don't want to think that our customers are having to sit there 3 to 4 hours a day checking logs, updating different versions and patching and adding new things here and there, adding new block sites, etc. So we have solutions that the customer can do it or Citrix can manage it. So it's one of those really interesting things where we're kind of taking the advantages, or we're taking advantage of our place in the industry as being a key security vendor and being able to pass along those best practices instantaneously as soon as there's any kind of patches or updates or threats. So being able to offer that from web app and API protection, web app firewall, always on DDoS protection, basically think of any trigger word for security. And Citrix offers it not only as a customer managed solution, but also as a Citrix service.
Great point. So it sounds like we're kind of tackling a lot of the components that people have on their ADC and moving that to the services platform in the cloud form. And like we were just chatting about here, the web app and API protection, that's an awesome part of the Citrix ADC. But like you're saying, it takes a little time to set it up. You got to learn, you got to watch it, you got to tweak it. But if we look at the cloud solution alternative to that, you guys have got a lot of the main ones, SaaS applications already kind of boxed up, and the templates are already available for it. So there's a lot of the recommended and best practices for those web applications. So that really reduces your time to ramp up. And again, like you're saying, in the cloud, it's almost evergreen. So if there is a requirement for firmware updates or anything, that's already taken care of in the cloud. So it's taking that off the internal organization team's plate on a day-to-day monitoring, making sure it's working, and kind of shifting that effort to addressing anything that might be found. Spending more time in the dashboard and looking at the actual analytics and checking performance and making things better is a reward from using these kind of solutions that are services based. So it's come a long way, and it really to help with today's modern workplace and the teams that are providing these solutions for their organizations.
Well, Chris, it really comes down to scalability and agility, right? So as a lot of these solutions are, being moved to cloud managed platforms, I mean, you look at it with companies like Epic, Office 365, G Suite, all of these solutions are starting to go to the cloud because people are realizing that if they just let the company who they're trusting for the software actually manage the infrastructure and the updates and the patching and stuff, then they can actually just focus more on work. So Citrix is pretty unique in the way that we approach this because we let customers kind of choose, do you want to handle everything? Do you want to do everything your own? Yeah, fine, we can let you do that. Or we can manage it for a very hands-off, one touch, how many licenses, how many users, how many locations, let us know, bam, we'll get it taken care of. So we kind of have a solution for everybody when it comes to this kind of a sense.
Yeah, excellent. All right, very cool. And then the good old ADC still on-prem, still my favorite. It's still love the infinite amount of possibilities that it can provide. But yeah,
Tried and true.
Yeah, tried and true. That's the very, very cool way to look at it. Well, guys, are there any other components that we didn't cover that may be up and coming or that we didn't touch on so much as part of the framework here?
So a little kind of a cool teaser here for you. So we're getting close to the full release for the ADC as a service. So even the tried and true ADC, we're starting to manage ourselves. We still offer that in the customer managed or Citrix managed, but really, we're taking that concept of scalability, rapid deployment, ease of management, and we're actually utilizing that as a service as well. So that's something really interesting to look out for. And definitely it's kind of along the lines of what we're doing as a company of making our solutions the best they possibly can. I mean, Chris, you've been around Citrix long enough to know every time that someone ever says that Citrix is, our Citrix is terrible, we don't like it, 100% of the time it comes down to a bad deployment, right? So exactly. we're kind of taking that option away, so we always know it's going to be a good deployment because we're the ones who have set up and managed the brains.
And that's pretty interesting, and I've had customers ask about it in the past couple months too. So will that ADC as a service, will that allow traditional load balancing on-prem? Do you know if that's a component that will be included in that?
Yes, we do offer it as an on-premise solution as well, and the customer can manage it. So there's different management levels of the service. So there is that on-premise option. Yeah. All
right, very cool. That'll be exciting. I can't wait to get my hands on that. That's for sure. So if customers are interested in this, how do we go about that? If we have this same kind of conversation and we watch the videos and everything, and they're like, hey, I want to kick the tires on this. I got the ability to stand up a delivery group in my CVAT environment. Can you help me take advantage of this? So are there any options to kind of give users like a 30-day trial of this, of the SIA or the SPA, or those components available to kind of spin up so that they can kick the tires on it?
So not with the SIA, just because, because it's the CASB solution and, we're paying for Azure tenants and such. We can do what I like to do is a pilot group, right? So a small section, between like 100, 150 users, and say, here's what we're going to do. Let's separate this out. Get a couple of your different user groups. Your power users is kind of the way I like to propose this. Put them on the solution, get all the feedback, come back, and we'll tweak it out, and we'll make sure that, we deliver you guys what you want. I've had a lot of success with that. For the SPA, I'm not sure, Chelsee, do we do SPA trials?
I think we can. I know we have like demo environments that are not specific to any customer environments that we can show. I haven't had a POC just yet, but I think the sales engineers on the Citrix teams can work with PM team to get trials set up for customers that are interested in it.
Okay. So there's some options there. I would think that like a lab environment would suffice for a lot of folks. Kind of get that spun up for them to check that out. Now, with that, I kind of just got zoomed into my own screen there for a moment.
It happens.
I don't have any other questions. I don't think at this point. So, you know, I super appreciate you guys joining today. I think, you know, that was good teaser a little bit to the August 31st webinar that we'll be doing together. So I want to put this out and invite all of our listeners to join on the 31st. If you see this, I'll have online for the podcast posting, then I'll definitely have a link in there for registration so you can join and actually see firsthand how this kind of is demoed and put together and the kind of experience that your users would have. But again, you know, I thank you guys very, very much for being here. Chelsee, Zach, and Greg. Thanks, William. I think he might have popped off, but I'll circle back around with him later. But
appreciate it, Chris. Always a pleasure to talk to the XenTegra guys.
Well, thank you very much. And I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for getting this kicked back off. We'll keep the momentum going. We'll try to tackle some more of these, and because it's got a great foundation. I'm sure as we evolve and adapt to what's out there, as Citrix does, and they've always done that. So we'll stay on top of this and have some more of these conversations about it, just to check in with our listeners. But again, thank you all very, very much for being here. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Appreciate it, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.